This is the analysis of Rip Van Winkle and the generational divide in American culture. The academic journal is by Robert A. Ferguson. So, as you may know, Rip Van Winkle was wrote by Washington Irving in 1819. Rip Van Winkle is known as an American literary hero, and he is the symbol of America in many ways. Ferguson says he is a failure that succeeds, and because his failure indicates something about us that we can face only indirectly, that he gets away with failure is a relief. So, basically, we all have some type of failure in our life, but the fact that we can get away with it and we can succeed even though we have some sort of failure in our life, it's a relief to know that it doesn't just screw us up forever. Ferguson says, quote, Knickerbocker operates as one of the first exercises in ambiguity of American fiction, unquote. Rip Van Winkle carries many meanings, and we all can catch some sort of lesson or relevance to our life from it. Obviously, Rip Van Winkle is very irresponsible. He's irresponsible as a husband, he's irresponsible as a father, and he doesn't really give his wife any other reason but to nag, as he says. She has every right to do that. She doesn't have help. He runs away to the inn every day, and he doesn't help out with the kids, and he doesn't take care of their home, and he's able to escape from it easily by only hearing her nag, if that's all that happens. So Rip is very irresponsible in that sense. When Rip returns after his 20 years of sleep, he is hungry, he has tattered clothes, he's desperate, and luckily he's rescued by the New Republican people. They come to his aid and they listen to him, and even though they're all questioning and they see this homeless looking man carrying an old gun on election day, they actually give him a chance. And Ferguson says in his journal that it could have gone the opposite way, and Irving wants us to realize that. He wants to see that it could have gone a different way, but instead they gave him a chance. So Ferguson says that Rip Van Winkle is doubly fortuitous. He says that people are in the right place at the right time for Rip Van Winkle, and they're actually believing that he slept for 20 years, and even though we know that that can't happen, they're still giving him the time of day and not really calling him crazy. So Ferguson says, Washington Irving always keeps the practical explanations for behavior lurking in the shadows as part of the twist in his humor. For that reason, it does not destroy the comic effect to ask what a realist would have understood about Rip's situation. So the truth about the 20 years of sleep. Ferguson says Rip has not been asleep. He's an alcoholic and he was on a 20-year binge. But Ferguson also says that a third of the 19th century, alcohol consumption is at its highest point. So it's no surprise that Rip's an alcoholic. It's no surprise that he's off for 20 years and, hanging out with his friends and escape life. And this is the time that Rip Van Winkle is written also. So obviously alcohol affects Rip in a negative way. He doesn't take care of the farm. He doesn't take care of the family. He has the worst farm in the neighborhood. His kids don't look like they're taken care of. And he goes to the inn each day to escape from his nagging wife, which obviously she's nagging. He doesn't do anything. He's an alcoholic. And after Rip comes back, his first thing he wants to think of is an excuse of what to tell his wife. So Ferguson makes a point to say that Rip allows his responsibility to go to waste, and he does not do anything that allows his wife to, do anything other than nag. Ferguson says Rip's faults, his laziness, his unconcern, his ability to rationalize away every trouble, are our own bad habits carried to extremes. So what Ferguson is saying, that we all have a time where we don't put our best foot forward, and this is what Irving is trying to get across to us, even though Rip is kind of taking it a little far. Irving is not saying that we're all alcoholics and don't take care of our family, obviously. Ferguson says Irving's most telling phrase for The Big Sleep reveals the accomplished storyteller. Rip is the story, but he learns how to make it his own in a way that everyone accepts with pleasure. So even though Rip has his flaws, he's not the best husband, he's not the best father. He does not say that in his story, and Ferguson says that he flips it around and he fabricates it to make it what he wants it to, so he feels like he's living the life. Ferguson also points out where Irving gives us an comparison of terrors that we can relate on in each generation. So even today, we have the fear of death, failure to adapt to change, and forgetting the past and those a part of it. So when Rip Van Winkle comes back, people have died, things have changed, and nobody really cares about the people from the past. They've moved on, they have a new president, and they're not thinking about any type of history before that. Ferguson also points out the age of Rip. He says that there's no way he's any more than 35 before he leaves. We know that he was asleep for 20 years, so Ferguson is saying he can't be over 55. He says this because he says Rip in his own vulnerability represents the plight of every old person who has lost track of the world. And just to be clear, there are 3 generations of Rips that are introduced to us. We have Rip, Rip's son, and Judith's son, Rip, which is the oldest Rip's daughter, Judith. He says, since all Rips are lazily alike in their essential self-absorption, no Rip helps any other Rip, but the third Rip, held in his mother's arms, function as a catalyst to restore the first Rip in his place. So we have the generational circle that keeps going around and says that all Rips are lazy and they get worse and worse, but baby Rip is a rebirth of oldest Rip. And Ferguson points that out when baby Rip is crying and Judith calls him a fool. Ferguson says Irving uses the generations to expose the sequential and casual hostilities in the life cycle. Laughter and pleasure guides us through the cohorts before and after us, but so do anger, fear, indifference, conflict, and inevitable tears. So he's saying that in everyone's life cycle, we have things that come up. We have conflict, we have indifference, but we all let laughter and pleasure guide us, even though we have bumps in the road. And he says that baby Rip crying is a rebirth of older Rip, and he says that baby Rip is oldest Rip in a smaller version. And like he says before, Rip will, the Rips will always be lazy. But wait, Ferguson comes back at the end and he says that Irving's not done being comical. He says that the speaker is dead as the story speaks. So when we have Knickerbocker telling the story, Knickerbocker's dead, but he's still relaying the story, and it will happen generation after generation. And even though the story moves on throughout the years, we can find truth and we can find understanding even through the hard times. And this story can still compare to some kind of event that someone is having in their life. That is all. Here is my works cited page. Thank you.